It's on the right. And then number 5, that should show the whole table.
I mean, I'm on.
Okay.
Thank you. Yeah.
Well, I remember some of it.
If it's legit.
So we're good to start? Okay, I'm gonna call to order the Budget and Finance work session. If you guys would pull out of your packet, we give them, they're not all clipped together. It should say executive summary, mission statement, then a blue sheet that says budget itself. Then the last thing for us is the balances in our $6,000 account. And then the last thing is the city court information. And if you just make a note to yourself, the 2 things we need to discuss are city court, plus the only other input I've gotten from you all relative to the general budget, not our budget, not council budget, is code enforcement. Enforcement of laws that we put on the book. I haven't heard anything else from anybody. Is there anything that anybody wants to add? Yeah.
Yes, thank you. Related to the general budget, sort of a spin in terms of enforcement, I'm interested in us looking at ways that we can improve our traffic safety enforcement. I know that we have funded positions in our police department that are unfilled, and it's a really tough nut to crack. I've asked the chief of staff to be considering, are there different ways that we can do this? But we know that some of our safety issues across our community are because we have a lot more speeding, we have more aggressive driving, and people are continually asking me, can you please have a police officer here or there, and it's just not something that we are able to provide right now. Another thing that I think would be important for consideration, special consideration in the general budget, is crosswalk maintenance and improvement citywide. We've had some really compelling information provided to us about, our crosswalks at schools, for example. I know that I regularly hear in District 1 and District 2 about crosswalks that are just deteriorated to the point you can barely see the lines. And I know we're gonna have a tight budget year, but if that were something that Public Works were able to put a fine point on, I think that would be useful.
Okay. Okay, this is great. Anything else? Darren, did you?
Yeah, I want to, Jenny, thank you for bringing that up. Just this morning, I was responding to an online poll for the Times Free Press, talking about that very same thing. Speeding, reckless, the enforcement of laws we already have on the books. I mean, we can pass them, we can come up with the greatest ideas for public safety, but until we implement them and make them real and make them known that we're enforcing them, they're pretty much just on paper. And in District 4, I will say that crossing a road is a very hazardous occupation. And I've been noticing more and more as we look at intersections like Gun Barrel and East Brainerd Road, for example, there are no markings. And when we ask people to maybe to walk more, to ride their bikes, or to use, we put in these bike lanes that sometimes just abruptly end into a very dangerous situation. I think we need to be, the word I'm going to use is intentional, going forward to enforcing the laws and actually backing up what we're asking. So I appreciate you saying that, thank you, because I'm seeing it, and I think that will probably go across every district.
It's gonna be a hard thing to solve because we don't
Well,
have
sure
the
it
police
is.
to add to it, but is there a different way that we could do it? We
Yeah.
can't use traffic cameras.
No, it takes
I'm
people,
hopeful.
it's gonna take people. It's gonna take, and like I said, it's gonna take intentionality, I think, in order to address it. You're seeing it in your district, I'm seeing it in mine, I'm sure others see it. The increase in speed, reckless driving, just the ill consideration for others. And then I ask the same thing. I have roads that I've worked on for years, like Davidson. I mean, my goodness, look how long it took to get that road completed, and thankfully we did. And I appreciate that 2 administrations working on that. And now the complaint is it's just a highway. And I'm like, yeah, and we knew that was going to be. But until we start,
Careful what you ask for.
be careful. Well, I said that just in a meeting last week, Councilman. You're exactly right.
Yeah.
Spoke to a group from Ashwood, the HOA, I said that very same thing. I said, be careful what you ask for. And that came in reference to widening of roads and whatnot in the city that they come with. But, you know, enforcing what we have, I think is just a repeated message, Dr. Burrs, that we consistently
I made notes of that, and what I want to do
wrestle with.
is spend time. So, here's the deal. When you're talking about budget, you're talking about a balancing act. It's not that that the legislative always reacts to the executive. And keeping that in mind, let me go through a few things with you, because I think this may make sense. It's that we had the right ideas. What we did is we got rid of the vehicles to use them, and if you'll just bear with me. This, at your very top page, the City Council FY25 Executive Summary. This is what we turned in for our budget. These aren't the numbers, you'll see these in a minute, but we're required to do the executive summary. All right? It is based on not only the mayor's one Chattanooga, but the second page you have, mission statement. We came through with those. And the very last pages there, we added, but was never fleshed out, we added affordable housing committee. So every time the council does something, makes decisions like this, Nicole and I go back and embellish what we already have so that we're right on task. Let me tell you where we haven't been on task. We added affordable housing, it was never fleshed out. And we added Human Resources Committee, it was never fleshed out. The reason a lot of this has never been fleshed out or reviewed is because strategic planning meetings were supposed to be, if you go back far enough in the minutes, you'll see this, were supposed to be where we worked on this. And Jenny, you alluded to it several times about we should be meeting to talk about what we're talking about right now. And that strategic planning meetings were the place we were going to do that. So if you look at every one of these, Economic Development Committee, you see the legislative budgetary focus, we should have been or should be revisiting this with the chair of that committee. That's you, Demetrius. We should be revisiting that at strategic planning meetings and see where are we, or do we need to change the legislative focus or whatever. It doesn't mean we're ever in juxtaposition with the executive. It means from the legislative lens, this is what we're looking at. So this is what council voted on and accepted, except for some reason then we canceled strategic planning meetings, and so it never became a working document, if that makes sense. So that probably is something that needs to happen before we go ahead and plan for our next year. Now, plan for the next year. We get a pot of money. We get $800 and something thousand for the budget, for our budget. What happens within that budget is our business. Most of it is directed toward set fees. All right, and I have this here for you. So there's very little discussion. Probably the discussion that we have is about two things. The $6,000 that each one of us has to spend for district activities, and the $100,000 that we put in there for contracted services. That's really the only thing that is discussionable, if you will. The rest are pretty much fixed costs. And
Not 100,000 each, just total.
the,
Council.
the council has $100,000 that we put in the budget, and we put that in the budget for contracted services. We've used it for research projects. For instance, this year, we have $100,000 in the budget. None of it is spent. 19,000, and some of it is already committed for the UTC study. So we have, say, 80,000 left. Why am I bringing this up? Well, you're probably not gonna be spending 80,000 by the end of the year. You might commit it for something, I don't know. But this is also the other thing we need to talk about is we need to hold that money. We need to encumber it, is the word, if we want it for the next year's special projects, which we've done every year, okay? None of this is new news, but it's into this fabric that we're gonna discuss budget and finance. Does that make sense? All right, so this is what we turned in. This is the plan. We sort of quit having strategic planning meetings to work on this. This is where we are now, and there's only one line item that is gonna look a bit hinky. Look under 704312, which is other contracted service. That's an illusion. Any monies that we have left over in anything go there, but it's an illusion because it's kind of a pot that we're holding for the security scanner, okay? It's gonna cost about $26,000 or more, and everybody's still deciding who's gonna be paying for that, so that's an illusion. You can see every other figure is pretty straightforward. Best guess, we ought to end up the year pretty much flat. The only thing that we're not, that's still in there will be about $80,000, which hasn't been committed, out of that contracted services. All right, any questions?
Mission statements.
All right,
When would you,
well,
sooner the better? Because looking at planning and zoning, we've made tremendous strides in
we
the
have.
new zoning codes, and I need to rewrite most of that.
All right, so the thing is that everyone that has a committee, and so the chair appointed heads of these committees at the beginning of the year. Everything happens organically, so it may be, I don't even know, some of these committees have even changed names a bit in the city. And so we need to go back and see if we still need these same committees. And this is a chair thing. Do we need the same committees? And we also need to take a look at where we are now. Good point. I don't know that impacts our budget per se. But remember, we're saying to government and the public, this first one, executive summary, this is what we're doing, this is what we have done. All right? And we're saying, this is our schedule of work, this is our plan of work to do this. This is what we've done so far with the money. And our concerns are, and this is developed organically, is enforcement is a big one. And that has to do with safety enforcement at all levels, plus code enforcement at all levels. And the only other salient issue that came up was city court. That's where we are. Anybody disagree on any of that? Okay. Any questions? Yeah, Jeff.
Where does the council reimbursement show up at in this line right here, the 54? And 54,000?
It's 36, excuse me, 9.6, yeah.
It's line 34, 341, but it's blank in this, looks like it's in a different, category.
That's what I wondered.
Yeah.
So where is it?
That is in a different cost center. We did not print that.
What cost center is it in?
A00102.
The actual budget is many pages. This was just a good overview. Would you like a copy of that to show?
Well, are you telling me that all these numbers don't add up to $877,000?
Those are, yeah.
Yeah.
The 54, the 6,000 per
Yeah.
council member, that is in the other cost center.
But where is it?
When you say,
Where is it?
Where?
He's wanting to know where does it show?
So it don't show up on,
it is not on that one.
Where does
Different
Not in
pile
that
than
cost
this
center.
pile than.
So we need to add it to this 87, right?
I'm a little confused.
So
Yes.
if I'm
When we
Yes,
talk
okay.
about your total
Yeah, for
request
total, yes.
for the upcoming fiscal year, yes.
Right,
Yeah.
so add
54
that
would
to
be in
this.
addition to
Yeah.
that.
Add that to the 877,000.
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Are there any other cost centers missing?
No, it's just the.
Just that one? So yes, add 88 to that, and we need to print this off. That's a good point, Chief. We need to print off another one that adds the 54,000. And make sure Chancellor Jersey, can we do that now, or they're still? we doing- Yeah, if we could add it, then that'll be it. All right. Okay, anything else? We'll see that you get that copy before you leave today.
Well, I just want to make sure that it gets added to this, if that's what we're submitting, is all I'm saying.
Oh, this is already, this has gone along with this?
I don't know.
I think the
I
way
think
the
she's, yeah, all right. These are all, this is an overview without a breakdown of all our cost centers.
In that particular, yes, that initial operations cost center,
Operation cost center. Now, the other cost centers,
that is strictly the council district funds.
okay. And, but that isn't on here, right?
It is not included in that.
All right. Okay.
If, just to see it all together, I can add it. for you.
Yes, if you would. Okay.
Well, I mean, that's the total request.
What he's
Yes,
saying,
yes, for the fiscal,
We're not requesting 877,000, we're requesting
54.
that plus.
Why don't, can we get Vicki to clarify just a little bit, because I think what we're getting a little lost in the cost centers.
Yeah,
In the
that's
cost
right.
centers and the way that the budget is configured, like, this person, this singular cost center is one thing, but there are other costs associated with city council.
Every department has multiple organizational units, and so we keep your operations totally separate than that, but when you submit your budget, Nicole does both pieces of that, and those were submitted today, by today, so they should be in there, but we have one that is your regular operations, and then we have a different bucket of dollars for your district expenses. But they are both in the budget, they're both fully accounted for every day, every month.
I guess we'll take your word.
Please do.
Vicki, can you explain to us why we keep those?
No. Normally, yeah.
That's a complete sentence.
Yeah, it's easier to keep track of how much you have and have not spent when it's by itself.
Sure.
It's just for easier tracking,
Easier tracking.
easier tracking.
All right, so for today's purposes, add $54,000 to this. and you-
that total amount, both cost centers is on your executive summary, it might be second page.
This executive summary doesn't add up to what we have. It is less.
Here it is.
we've got 877, 179 on this blue copy, and in the executive summary,
should be
we have
around
708,
54,000.
816.
That's the missing 54,000.
No, it's not. No, it's not. This is 708. This is
Oh, I'm looking here.
Budget highlights.
879,
Look over here.
877.
You said the budget, request up here,
Yeah.
right there,
Where are
Second
you?
page.
right here.
Budget highlights.
Budget requested.
Budget highlight.
Personnel
Mine
costs,
says
okay.
931.
931,
179.
There we go,
Yeah.
that's our.
Yeah, that's it,
That's it.
So 931, 179 is it.
yeah.
We could add that.
This is the operational, the way they like to do it. Okay. There's no smoke and mirrors here. It's just
Included.
fine. All right. Anything else?
So I have a question.
Sure.
This mission statement, that is given out every year?
No, it's not.
It's not given out, it is,
It's designed by the council.
and do we discuss it every year or not?
It is discussed,
Was it discussed last year?
well, it's discussed every year. We may have already done that when you came on. I don't know.
Because honest to God, this is the first time I've ever seen this.
Okay. I'm not sure who orients you when you come in. I know it's not me. Okay. Yeah.
So Marvine, I don't know if this helps, every year we'll kind of rewrite, as a committee chair, rewrite and submit, and then we've had discussion around the table at some point. And we basically adopt it, and it goes into this document. And like, for example, I mentioned mine is, we've covered so much ground. This mentions Camaros, we're way past all that. And so I've got to go back and reconstruct this completely for the year coming up. And then we'll submit it, I'll submit it to, budget chair. And once it's submitted, we'll get around the table and we'll talk about the committee, and everyone will have an input on each committee as a whole, because we are a committee as a whole.
And now's the time of year we do that. It'll probably be the first work with what is, quote, the new council year. For instance, Marvin, if you look at budget and finance, one of the things I added last year, because everybody wanted it, was that number 8, these quarterly reports. You're getting more than quarterly reports. You're getting executive expenditures, you're getting all of this. And so so to answer your question, yes, I would say probably, well, budget has nothing to do with it. Well, the budget's one thing, but our plan of work is something totally different that we do within the budget. So whenever the chair says we need to get busy on this, that's when we'll do it. And this is the working document. That's a good question. Anything else? Okay, so the two things that, no questions about process. What's gonna happen is just like the handout I did a week or so ago, and that is we'll get the budget beginning around April. I need your direction. Do you want to follow the same process we've done every year? We get the budget, at the same time the public gets the budget. And each one of you who is a committee chair has a session with Ryan and finance people, and so that you understand everything in the budget relative to your committee, so that you're able to respond at public meetings to things. We follow that by having public discussions of everything about the budget based on presentations that Ryan and department heads present. And at that point, we take as much time as we need to approve the budget. Hopefully, we'll get it approved second reading before July 1st.
How many public meetings? is
Well,
there?
every meeting's a public meeting. So what happens is, the budget's ready to go at the beginning of, I would say, April. Each one of you, relative to this work statement, the mission statement, has a committee.
Right.
You're gonna be meeting with Ryan, you're gonna be looking and see how the budget relates, because all of the things we approve should relate to what our mission is. And if you read the executive summary, so far, they have, there's some things we probably need to be a little more diligent on, but they have. So, you're gonna be looking at next year and who's gonna be doing what, and what we need as far as economic development. Right now, it has to be based on what we have now as a mission statement, because we haven't assigned committees yet, or even if we're having the same committees. For instance, Jenny has, that committee, that housing committee isn't even fleshed out. Obviously, we're spending a lot of time and energy on housing. So that probably meets the test. HR, I don't know, because we never fleshed it out. So every decision we make needs to be based in something other than we think it's a neato idea. It needs to be based in what our plan of work is. Ryan will be meeting with each one of you individually to see if you have any questions about your own bailiwicks. Just make sure you're fully informed. And then we will start our public meetings as we've done in the past. All of them are public, if you remember. And you'll start on the first page of the budget and start making presentations. What you need more information on, they're directed to get for us, so that when you finally make a decision, when we finally make a decision, we're fully informed. My question is, are you agreeable to that same process? Do you need any steps added? Because I need you to boss me. Do you want anything added when I meet with them as I start setting up the schedule?
I found the process to work very well.
Okay.
The sooner that we can get a digital copy of the budget, the better. That's just the easier way for me to
Okay.
use it. And then any
Okay.
budget presentations that we're gonna have on a given day, if it's not gonna follow the budget book, I'd love to have that digital as part of our meeting materials.
Right now, the plan is to follow the budget book. I'm not sure which one of you guys puts it up online, the same.
Budget staff.
All right, so the same day we hand out the notebooks, council would like everything online digitally as it goes out to the public as well. Thank you. Anything else?
Are you also seeing, Councilman Hill, that, we also have slides that we show? You would also like the digital version of those?
Correct, yes. If
that
the
you're also
presentations are not going to follow verbatim, page by page, it would be helpful to have the slides in advance of the budget work session.
I think I'd like them even if they do follow
Yeah,
verbatim.
Yeah,
I think it's always good to look up or to take to our constituents
Sure.
or talk. Okay,
I'm tracking.
all right. Okay, so,
Just know, obviously, those are oftentimes changing right up until the last minute, but we will give them to you as soon as they're available, so.
Well, I need to make notes on them in the meeting. So if they're changing to the last minute, I can pull them onto my tablet at that minute.
Okay.
all right, so we have our budget discussions, and you have everything you need to meet with your constituents. Talk with the public any way you want to know. And the final thing before we start the vote on the budget is what's called the big public meeting, which is in the assembly room. And then we do first and second votes. Any questions about it? It's pretty much what we did last year. I'll have a schedule to you pretty fast, like we've always done. And if anything's out of order, I'll note that for you. But I don't know any reason it should be. Anything else?
I would just like, every year I have had an opportunity to meet with Chief of Staff and the Mayor before the budget. I would like to.
I think.
for me personally to have that meeting
I think
before the budget is released.
I think the administration plans to speak with you all individually from their perspective. And that's their bailiwick. But I do know that we've planned everything so that there's no facet of information where you don't get full information and then have your input that way too. So yes, that's happening as well. Anything else that you want? Anything else that you need about process? Okay, well then the discussion today is twofold, the deep dive. Ryan, before you wanna come on up to the table or?
Well,
Maybe I get that privilege.
there's not much room at the table, but.
Well, here was my only question, and it's not a money thing as much as there are two things that council has a lot of energy about. One, obviously, is city court. The other is enforcement at all levels. And we would like rigorous discussion about that. And the answer can't always be there's not enough money. It may be that we have to rethink how we spend money, whatever, but I think council wants a great deal of input on that. That being said, whoever is doing whatever you're doing, come on up. Well, here, come
Vicky,
on.
there's a chair down here.
Here's one.
You may want to
I
have
was
two
having
cameras.
forgotten this one.
No, I don't. I'll put it in my lap.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, you're
You
fine.
want me to put your luggage over here?
Okay, my bad.
You're going on a trip after that?
Okay, you're on.
All right. Okay, so you received I know this was passed on to you, what we had gathered. This was probably what we gathered maybe the week after the last presentation. We answered as many questions as we could, as quickly as we could. So I hope you've had a chance to look at that. Since then, we keep gathering information, so I thought we would go over what we've gathered since this was put together, if that's okay. Okay. The first thing, we did a deep dive. There was a question about cases versus violations. So it's interesting, you were talking about safety a few minutes ago. I looked into this morning's docket just to give an idea. So one of the individuals in this morning's docket had 2 violations. They had 1 case, 2 violations. The 2 violations were speeding in excess of 21 miles and failure to exercise due care. So that's an example, of difference between a case and a violation, just so we have clarity moving forward. Did do a sample of dockets so that we could figure out what the relationship was. And with the sample, we have about 1.7 violations per case. So there can be a case that has 1, there can be a case that has 3, there can be a case that did you like that 3? There can be a case that has 2. I saw one that had a case that had 5 violations, but the average is 1.7 violations per case in the sample that we did. It's a question about cases versus violations.
So the question had to be, it had to do with the workload.
Okay, we'll get there.
All right, but cases, one of the things that was presented was 5,000 and something a month, which is absurd. I do a lot of work with the courts, and they don't have that in a year. And so it may be a bit misleading, and I think that's what brought the,
Right.
okay.
So,
So what
added,
Vicky's saying is take that number and divide it by 1.7.
and you've got an
That's
idea.
gonna give you a more accurate estimate for the number of cases that we have on a monthly basis.
All right, and then the second question is, everybody's on a computer, so how does that take so much time?
Everything is not on a computer.
What?
All the cases do not come in digitally. CPD has a combination of e-citations, And the e-citations, you have to review the data and make sure it's all correct, and then that's uploaded. But they still have a lot of handwritten tickets. All of McCamey is handwritten, all of code enforcement is handwritten, and AHOs are manually put in. So it is not all a digital ingestion.
So is that a little dark agey?
McCamey, codes enforcement, and
AHO do not come in digitally.
administrative hearing officer, all are handwritten tickets?
Well, not they have to be manually put in. They do not have a digital format to upload. And even the uploads have to be reviewed carefully before they're uploaded.
Miss Vicky, on the, here it's got, you know, the number of AM dockets, and then here in February, so they had one every day for the whole week in February, so what changed? Or they just, every now and then they'll host a PM docket?
I have no idea
Or what's
about
the
why they.
difference now, because I was under the impression that we eliminated the PM, that's why we got rid of.
And I, from looking, when I looked through these, some look like they're environmental cases specifically, so I think they're divided.
I think environmental is in the morning, traffic is in the afternoon.
Okay.
I can't really tell you how they are, yeah.
Just split them up that way. 'Cause
If that's a
you've got-
question that we need to follow up with, I'll be glad to follow up.
No, I didn't.
You got code enforcement, you got code enforcers there in the morning and police officers there in the afternoon.
No, I was just confused because we eliminated the other court, which was supposedly the PM docket, and
Well,
I'm just confused.
yeah, we eliminated a judge.
Yeah, the judge.
Right. And I'm,
You still have environmental and traffic violations.
and this is just a total shot in the dark, but that week that had so many in the afternoon, remember, we had some bad weather and had to reschedule a lot of cases.
Okay.
That would be my guess, and that's a total guess.
Okay, so go ahead. We interrupted.
Oh, that's
you, but
fine,
go
that's
ahead.
fine. Okay, our next question was the number of people who are served each day and in what capacity. The estimate is that the clerk's office serves about 300 individuals every day. That's in different capacities. That includes all the processing of all the tickets. They have to schedule all the hearings. That's working with the constituent and with the officer to make sure that their schedules are gonna align and they'll both be in court the same day. So they work with the scheduling. They answer a lot of questions about procedures and the status of their case, so they answer a lot of those questions. They collect all the fines and fees and all the processes that are associated with payment collection and reporting. And then they also go through everybody that has outstanding balances and sends letters of a reminder to them. So that's sort of that 300 people a day, what they do.
So when you say 300 people, it's not necessarily 300 people coming in there, it's just the
Correct.
workload itself.
Correct. And that can be online, that can be telephone, that can be in person, just multiple ways of dealing with people.
300 people on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 full-time people serve 300 people a day. Okay. With scheduling,
Right,
And collective money.
and collecting, and
they send doodle polls to make sure court's convenient.
I don't know how they do the scheduling to make sure that we have everybody there at the same time. All right, the next question was the number of constituents assisted with driver's license. Right now, as of earlier this week or Friday, there were 308 active payment plans. So that's when someone has not paid their fine in total and they want to retain their driver's license. So they're continually calling, okay, where am I on this? When do I owe? How much do I owe? So they are frequently reaching out and working with that 308 folks.
So let me ask you a question. I know the city works with a collection agency. Help me there.
And I don't know at what point, but at some point when it's deemed that they're not receiving the payments as they should, they're turned over to the collection agency. The clerk's office still continues to collect, and actually, I think it was on that sheet that they actually collect more than the collection agency during that period of time.
It's, yeah,
Yes, it's on the back page
on the
of that.
back page.
So even once they're sent to the collection agency, they continue to collect in the office.
So is a collection agency on here and how much is being
There,
paid for
it's the
them?
last page on that one, hopefully. If you've got what I have,
Is that it?
that's it. So NRS is the name of the collection agency. And it shows how much was sent, how much was collected in our office, how much they collected, and the balance not yet collected, and the number of accounts that are with them.
Vicki, may I?
Sure, go ahead.
So going back to 2018, there's almost $1 million not collected. So what, other than staying on the books, what happens?
It stays on the books.
So
Yeah,
it's uncollected
it's
debt?
just uncollected, yes.
Same thing in my small business? It's just, that's what it is?
That's what it is.
Okay.
I am happy to see, though, that the last 2 years, that 10,000, almost 11,000 accounts has gone down to 5,000-ish. So that's a huge improvement.
That 165 is an interesting number, it caught my eye. 2022.
Yes, that was a nice amount not collected. Those were really small fines, weren't they? That's wonderful. And we're up a little bit more, but that was one of the things I wanted to point out before we ended, is that they are doing a much better job of collecting in the office, and fewer things have been turned over to collections, and I think that's a big step forward.
So would it be safe to say, obviously looking at 2018, 19, there's $2 million right there, roughly, that we just, as we do in business, write it off, call it a day?
Except I don't think we physically write them off, we just keep them there.
They're just on the books?
They're just in the
Okay.
system, correct.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah, Jenny.
Well, so it's interesting that you say that we just, do we write them off or do we keep them on the books? You know, when we think about our serial offenders with code violations, as far as I've been educated, those fees just sit. And there is little to no incentive to pay them if you don't mind a bill collector calling you, right? We don't have a mechanism at this point to put a lien on your property tax or something of that nature. But I'm also interested on page 5, related to the violations. In 2018, for example, in McCamey, we had almost 3,200 violations that McCamey reported. And in 2003, it's 302. It's a 90% drop off. And from what I've heard from the public, they don't feel 90% better about animal violations. So it goes back to our enforcement conversation of what is happening. Now, I will say, this council, you can tell this council's been pushing code violations because look, 22 to 23, we've had a significant uptick in, you need to call 311, you need to report the code violation. We're really pushing that.
We also added a code enforcement, 1 or 2 code enforcement positions in the last budget.
That's true, that's a great point. But then also with CPD, in 2018, we had 26,000 violations, and in 2023, we had 11,000 violations. So almost 50%, more than 50% less, which again speaks to, we don't have officers that are able to enforce, and
Or they could be going to sessions.
they could be going to sessions, great point.
But Sessions Court said that they did not see anything that came to Sessions that could have just been city court.
Well, I think that's true. I think what happens is when they're taken to Sessions Court, the violations are stacked. And so they would be, maybe the minorest thing, if you will, would be city court, but they're stacked, and then they go to sessions court. So that's probably true.
But individual that could have, you know, if they could have just put everything in some place, Hamilton County doesn't see that they received any of those.
Yeah.
That was out of like a
And that was a
1,900-page
question.
report.
Yeah, that was a question we had.
Right.
was, why wouldn't they go to city court? And it's because they're not city court material because of the violations. Okay.
All right, next question was about the abatement process, especially, and that was around deceased individuals. So as they're sending out the letters for balances due, they always go and check the address to make sure they're sending it to a good address. And that's when they see a code for somebody's deceased. And at that point, they gather all the warrants in the office and all the ones that have been sent to NRS, the collection agency, and they prepare something for the judge for judicial action for that.
What does that mean? What is judicial action? Does that mean that then
It's-
it goes into probate? As a
It
lien?
doesn't seem to go in, it just is marked as abated due to death.
They're dead.
But so they're just forgiven, even though they're dead, but other,
That seems to be the
So
case.
there's no lid
From
on any
nobody
property,
dead.
there's no,
There is,
what you're saying is
if you
nothing
die
else.
owing, it's done.
so you can say over my dead body.
Over your,
That's your only way out.
So,
You just gotta wait the game.
Oh, fill my yard full of cars and trash and tents.
Gotta wait the clock out.
yeah, why bother? I'm just, go ahead.
okay. So I tried to make sure we hit all the pieces that were out there. Caseload. So I have had multiple conversations and met with the municipal court specialist at MTAS. And he went on and sent out a survey in January to municipal courts in Tennessee. And when he sat down, I said, which ones are similar courts? And when we compared caseload of similar courts, caseload, not violations, we're right, you know, right where they are. So we stack up on par with the other municipal courts in the state as far as caseload.
Those are individual docket numbers, right?
I'm not counting individual docket numbers, I was counting,
What is a caseload? It has to relate to something.
it would be the number of cases that they hear in a month by the staff that they have. So when we compared apples to apples, it was, you know, like we were one better.
So let me ask it a little differently. Could a case have a number of incidents underneath it?
Yes, that was not the number that we used.
You used the,
The
it would be
one.
like a case number.
Correct.
Okay.
Not with multiple violations within that. We use the one higher number. We use, like if, I don't have it in front of me. So if we have because we're at, so if we had 100 cases listed on a docket, but I have 40 that are multiples. So I have 60 cases, 60
So it's
distinct cases, and that was what we calculated this with. So we used the most conservative number to not inflate what we're doing.
Do you have any idea, because city court has a bunch of no-shows? A lot of courts do.
Sure.
Court does too. So are we counting them more than once?
I don't know. They would be showing up, if they were a no-show, they would be showing up in a docket again.
Correct.
So I'm sure that but I would think everybody would be in that same ballpark.
The thing is that if somebody no-shows, that takes like reset or something, that's very quickly. I'm pretty familiar with what dockets look like, and so we're talking about dockets, we're talking about time spent, we're talking about a lot of things. What I think council was looking at is whether you have 10 people, 14 people, whatever it is working, what's the time actually spent on a case? Or how much is just spinning wheels, calling Miss Jones who isn't gonna answer or isn't gonna show up? Or is it maybe a fault that we need to modernize our system?
That's always a case where we could
I
use
mean, I'm
technology
listening
better.
in shock that we're
So we
still
just need-
right. I mean, my God,
And then you have to sit there and manually enter.
right.
And so,
You didn't check with other systems. There are a
did
little more
not.
modernized than ours.
I did not check into systems.
Okay.
I did speak with 3 different, consulting firms, and, we're talking $100,000 for them to even come in and do any kind of analysis of where we are technologically.
Well, we're spending that in salaries that are spinning their wheels. I mean, it's a philosophical decision.
Yeah, I hear you.
Thanks, yeah, Jenny.
Sure.
Well, to add to that, but we also have a process improvement group within the city.
Correct.
So I think that would be a good assignment for them, would be to go and sit in the clerk's office and do those time studies and see where our opportunities are.
I
and
think
get
that
our
is in
IT
the plans.
department- Okay, good. Involved in, like to your point, like ringing when we could probably have a auto call system that would do that, or any number of things.
Right.
So one thing we've heard, whether or not we talk about money and positions and stuff, is we need to upgrade the system. Not just, we need to modernize what we're doing now. Make it lean and mean, that sort of thing.
Or at least learn to better use what we have. It could be a combination of both.
Okay.
And let's see, the last thing, I just wanted to point out that if you look since 2020, which, pandemic area, we've increased our collections almost $500,000, that's 20%, and have decreased the things that are, the accounts that are going to collection agency by 35%, and I think that's huge. I think I answered all the questions that I had from the last time.
Question,
Yes,
or
ma'am.
statement, Vicki. So does it take 14 people to do this amount of work? And I think that would be more of a process.
And I think that's a process. Somebody's gonna have, there's no way to sit there and count every interaction and what they do, and if that's the best, we have to have somebody sit there and help us.
Okay.
So process improvement, absolutely.
Yeah.
So is that something we can get? Is that something that's something that's gonna happen? Is that something we can get?
We have just this week just talked, that's definitely one of the directions we need to head, is to see what we can do to enhance the processes there and see where we can do better.
Are they using rotary phones?
No, but they have rotary files.
All right. Councilman, yes.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Vicki, this is kind of the same kind of question, but other than just improving processes, an evaluation of the staffing needs. Is this something that you are planning or the administration is planning? I mean, we can sit here and ask these questions all day long, but really, I'd be looking for a very, very well-informed recommendation from the administration as to, yes, we are staffed adequately. No, we are overstaffed. Here's where we need, to improve some things in the office. Because we've been talking about this for 10 years, so at some point, I would love to hear, and I'm not saying that you should have done it already, I'm just
Yeah, you're
voicing
right.
this has gone on, and every year this comes up at budget time. I don't know why. But it'd be great to get just a recommendation from the staff, Ryan, administration, if there is one, to address this,
Yeah, I think I put in the email to you all that ultimately, we're gonna always say that staffing levels should match the work volume, right? And so, here we have a situation where, going back to 2018, there was a certain work volume, and that work volume has reduced since 2018. And so, we have to look at that. As an administration that's focused on Goal 7 of One Chattanooga, which is a responsive and effective government, we're committed to looking at that, and so we have to take a look at what is the right level of staffing here, and that's our responsibility. So, we're not prepared to make a specific recommendation today, but.
Will it be in this budget cycle?
I think we have a responsibility to bring that forward in this budget cycle.
Thank you. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Yeah, thank you very much. Is there anything else?
The last thing is you did ask for a breakdown of budget and actual expenses, so I have PDF'd and can share that with you as soon as we leave here. Both the judge's office and the court's office, and this is as of through February.
So, yes, you did do that, and thank you very much for looking at that. Is there any other information that the council needs relative to city court? Are you satisfied that administration is looking at this and making a recommendation in this budget cycle? Or do you have any more direction to Ryan about consideration, what that looks like? Because we could sit and argue about it when the budget comes out, but why not preempt it and just get what you want now? So is there anything else?
I have faith in Ryan to speak out loud.
Careful of that, right? I don't know. All right.
I did have
Yes,
one thing.
ma'am.
So I guess it's not really in line with this, but it's about the code enforcement. Could we have information on what more code, and I came in late, so you might have already discussed it, but what more code enforcement, like more, as far as do we need more inspectors, or what is it that we need to make sure that our code enforcement department
I was
is?
going to that
Oh, I'm
next, so
sorry.
that's
Yes,
good.
go-
Yeah.
oh, go ahead.
So, yeah, before you came in, I said there were two things, enforcement and city court.
Okay.
All right, so is there anything else for city court? Okay, Ryan. All right, as far as code enforcement, we talked about code enforcement across the board, whether it be code enforcement from Dallas's office, or how about police code enforcement, and just enforcement across the board. And so the next question is, how do we get hold of, it's pretty clear we want enforcement. You want to join us here at the table?
Always. Get to sit by Councilwoman
No.
No?
No, I'm kidding.
I'll bring the bag back.
Be careful.
I'll put the bag here.
Come on.
You don't know what's in that bag.
At least one break, maybe two.
So, council's been pretty serious across the board. Every time we talk about passing an ordinance, we talk about, what about enforcement?
Yeah.
And it's gotten to the point now that it's really gotten to be a thing with council. Has anyone, and that was a very good question of the chairs, and that is, has anyone done a look-see at, with what we've passed, what kind of enforcement officers, what is the need there? Even if it's just the code enforcement, property code enforcement, not to mention police, quote, code enforcement, when we think, well, we can't get any more police. Well, yeah, we can. We can, we do the budget. So they're righteous conversations.
Sure.
So has anybody done any study about if we were to, best of all practices, be serious about enforcement, what would that take in that department?
I think the short answer to your question is, I don't think there's a specific study that's been done. I think back to last year's budget and how we certainly, with collaboration with council, added, it's escaping me right now, but it was at least one, maybe two code enforcement inspectors, which again, I think that is contributing to some of the increased numbers there with city court. I remember having the conversation then, we could add 100 code enforcement inspectors, and they would all have a job to do, because it's a yeoman's job to do code enforcement in our city. But to Vice Chair Hill's point, there's a lot of layers to enforcement, for sure. So we can certainly talk from a law enforcement perspective and what we've been doing on the law enforcement side. We can talk pedestrian safety, as we have with Fraser and what we're trying to do there, but not just Fraser, but citywide around pedestrian safety. So the enforcement conversation can go in so many different directions. So we're here to partner with you with this budget, but I would say it'd be helpful to get a little bit more specific. I can say that we already are thinking along the same lines in this budget around, hey, carving out something more around pedestrian safety. You mentioned crosswalks, Vice Chair Hill. We're already thinking along those lines. So I don't think we're that far apart, but I think the more specific we can get, to your point, to get ahead of budget education sessions would be helpful.
All right, so Councilman Henderson and then Councilwoman.
So, and this probably ties in with the city court. I've got a constituent that has emailed me with basically the neighbor's yard being a dump. And I got an email from an inspector, from a code enforcement, that said, the owner's been cited to environmental court 5 times. They're going back again the 28th of this month. Again. Why do we need to go 5 times to get a mess cleaned up?
Amen.
I mean, so help me, that's where I wanna focus the discussion. And I don't know that even takes any more money. I don't think, but,
Will it take writing some ordinances, and do we need, like,
well, I don't know. That's what, I mean, I need to understand why we're citing somebody to court 5 times. They're going back again. And it says this time, we're gonna just ask the judge if the city can clean it up.
The administrative law
Well,
judge.
tell me what I need, how do we fix that?
I'm not an expert on how to fix that, but I think it's a valid point, and we can certainly take that example of, why is that process not working, and dig into that. And if that's where we want to go with enforcement, let's dig in.
Well,
To your point,
I'd
I
say
don't-
that's at least one place I wanna
Sure,
go.
sure, yeah, because I don't think that costs a lot of money. That's a process issue.
It's already in the law.
Yeah.
It's garbage, trash, noise in the ordinance we passed. And it was to go, the original idea was, check the ordinance, was to go to the administrative law judge. What the discussions were that, at least with, the 2 gentlemen that were working on the law relative to administrative law judge, they were to let us know if there were any glitches, otherwise it should be enforceable now. And, it was to be a $500, it was to go to them, and up to a $500 a day fine. Why is that not happening? We have all the pieces in place. I'm sure it was noise, it was litter. Every bit of that's already in the law right now. I'm not understanding why they're even going.
it's like,
To
then
city
does it get to collections?
Huh?
Does it fall apart at collections?
No, they're apparently going to city court and not to the administrative law
Back to
judge.
city court, yeah,
Instead of the $500 fine.
so normally they go to city court, they say, okay, you've got 30 days or whatever to clean it up. They come back. So I mean, at the most, you should have to go back is twice. I mean, I get the first time, okay, you got 30 days, here's what needs to happen. They come back at the end of that 30 days, is it been done? Well, I mean, if it hadn't been done, then that's where we should be able to step in, clean it up, put a lien against the property, and go on about our business. This has been going, I mean, I'm assuming it's every month, so 5 months has probably been, you know, it's been, and there was one occasion where all that mess caught on fire, and our fire department had to go over there and put the fire out. So, I mean, it actually is a danger to our fire department. But we're still putting up with going to court for the 6th time.
And people are racking up fines. I mean, I've got a house like that in my district, and they've got something to the tune of $6,000 and $50 fines. I mean, there's something broken there.
Right.
That somebody's not, there's not okay, so I got $6,000 in fines, so,
Yeah.
moving
I'm
on.
not sure, Phil, if you have thoughts on where that breakdown is, is that an administration breakdown, is that a judicial breakdown? Do you have a sense of that?
There's a collection issue, and then there's I guess, multiple going to the same spot over and over again, and there's a problem in the state law that you cannot arrest people for violations of city ordinance provisions. So we have the authority only as a municipal court to assess those fines, and then it's a collection matter. So that's the reason that your officers at times are probably citing them to some sort of criminal court where they can get at least some additional charges in connection with those matters. And there are not those $50 limitations that we have under state law. And the Municipal Court Reform Act that was adopted by the General Assembly is your problem in that regard, and it needs to be changed.
Well, there's gotta be a workaround. I mean,
Yes.
So
we've
I,
got
my
an
question-
AHO that can
My
assess
question
$500.
was, why are they even
Why do
going
they
to
care?
city court? And
Oh, yeah.
Vicki, that's
$15,000
five, that's what I'm
That
talking
was
about.
right in my mind.
Yeah.
Your data are flawed, not yours, but it's
Just
some
the fact that
dude
they're
that's,
coming back
yes,
5 times,
yes.
yeah.
All right,
No, I think that's an interesting case study, for us to dig into, and.
Every one of us could send you one.
yeah.
It's not just that one.
You'll have mine soon.
Would you like
I
that?
didn't mean just that.
The
The general topic.
All right, Councilwoman Dotley.
The other one is, McCamey. I love McCamey, but it seems they are beyond capacity. And I talk about my roosters and things all the time. But it seems they're not able to do, as much work as they should. I mean, I saw an animal control truck Sunday, first time I've ever seen one ever, in the city. So I would like to see, how can we address those issues? You know, we have a lot of dogs running around, you know, with the increased homeless population. A lot of times they have their fur babies, you know, and, but then a lot of times whatever happens, they're not able to take care of them. So then they're just roaming the neighborhoods. I know in South Chattanooga for a while, there was a pack of like 12 dogs that just, they would tear the bump off your car. Like, it was terrible. So somehow it grew up in a pack up by, it's just a whole neighborhood story. But they grew up in, it was in some vacant house. They just kept breeding in there. It was terrible. But we see a lot of, you know, like I said, a lot of roosters. I see roosters every day. Roosters, dogs that are attacking some of the teachers out from East Lake, chasing the students and things like that. So there's a lot going on, and a lot of times they reported. There was one where they couldn't even, you know, our little churches, the pastor congregation couldn't even get into the church because the dogs were, like, as they were going up to it, they were like barking at the car, like chasing the car back down the hill. It's ridiculous. And so how can we, what do we need to do to make sure that we're able to address those concerns? As far as, you know, you have, and people have other animals that they let loose out into the community as well. And a lot of times McCamey's like, well, we hear it all the time. You know, we're understaffed. Well, in the meantime, kids are still getting chased. People are still getting attacked.
Sure.
Things are happening.
Are dogs supposed to be on a leash or in a fence?
I couldn't tell you my neighborhood.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, are they?
They're not supposed to, they're not supposed to be on.
There's no.
Right. Oh, well, they're loose.
Because I have them in my.
Okay, they are absolutely loose. And so what do we, and it scares, you know, kids, it scares, you know, you have elderly walking down, they can't, you know, they're not gonna run from this dog, it's just gonna be getting beat with a cane today, you know, accident with the dog. So how can we, I don't know if we need to, I don't know when the contract is up with McCamey. I don't know if we need to begin to look at how do we supplement that if they're under capacity, or just look at a whole nother vendor. I know it's not that many.
And McCamey is funded through our budget process.
Right, right.
So, as an agency or quasi-agency, yeah. So I think it's very timely conversation. I'm thinking about this, I think the, safety committee is really when we talk about enforcement, yeah, code enforcement's one, well, I don't know. I'm thinking about a council committee where these conversations may make sense. Yes, budget, right? But if we want to do some deep dive into some of these topics, we might bullet some of them out, and it could make sense in the short order if we can get a committee meeting on the books to bullet some of these out before we get into, budget presentation, just to flesh this out a little bit more prior to budget presentation, and ask McCamey to come in and speak to some of this and what they would need to do a little bit more. To your point, staffing is a challenge. What would it take for them to fill some of their staffing gaps to improve service? It's a valid question. We already have their budget request for this year. The question on the table would be, will that address any of the service gaps? If yes, if no, that takes us down different paths, right? So those would be helpful answers to have going into budget.
Two more, when our time is short, so Councilman Ledford and Councilman Smith.
Just to reiterate a little bit, I was speaking to a group of an HOA last Thursday night, and this particular subject came up in great interest, and it was the same questions that we're asking here. And when I was talking specifically about the AHO, and I believe Dr. Burrs, you added in noise, I added in litter, but to Councilman Henderson's point, and I think this whole council would probably stand with the administration and everyone who works in it in making that stronger. We put it into place. I don't understand, and I had to answer, I did not know when the AHO was absolutely triggered, who triggers it. I think that needs to be defined. If it doesn't need to, if it's not defined, then we need to know how to define it, and we need to know how to put it into action. I think the AHO is a perfect way for us to strengthen our position on code enforcement. And I will say, and I give all credit to code enforcement from LDO and to Donna's team too. When I've called and folks are out there, they go and they look, and I see them in our neighborhoods. And I think that they're doing what they can, but I think if we're gonna lean on this and we're gonna get serious about it, we're gonna have to have the stomach for it.
Yeah.
And I think that what I'm hearing is we have a stomach for it, and that we have laws on the books, and we need to enforce them.
Yeah.
And that we wanna help you. And I think that we're willing to stand and help you do that and accomplish that. And I think people deserve that. I really do. Sometimes I feel like they're held hostage by a system that does not reward those who do play by the rules, and those who don't play by the rules just keep getting the pass and the pass. And I think that breeds more of the same type of behavior when it comes to all kinds of code infractions, including litter. I mean, the more trash we see on the side of the road, the more message it says that's where trash goes. And also I want to give great kudos, when I've had situations in my district, I call Ryan and Public Works, and we do have emergency crews, and they're out there, and I thank you very much for that. I think we need more of it, and I think that's what people expect out of their local government as one part of services for their tax money. And I just want to say to you all, you let us know what you need. I'm here to help you in any way, because I think that's what people are craving for in this city.
Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just going back to the McCamey piece, Ryan, and I'm not sure who's going to communicate with them on the budget request directly, but knowing what they are doing for the money, number of calls they manage, they go out, how many animals have they picked up, I'd be interested to know what exactly are you doing for the funding you're getting before we entertain giving them more funding, assuming services are going to get better, because you've got to have a measure, right? Like, how much more do you actually do?
Right.
I'm just putting that out there. I'd like to know.
It is now 15 minutes before our next meeting, so we will take a break. I think, Ryan, the messages have been loud and clear.
Sorry, I didn't hear you.
The messages have been loud and clear.
I wasn't trying to be funny, I really
I just gotta, not sure. But anyway, thank you all very, very much. If you have any other questions or directions for me relative to budget, let me know. Otherwise, the meeting's adjourned, till 3:30 when we go to agenda.
Lord.
Right.
Sure.
Budget.
Yeah,
There's always a spin
I
on it.
told you.
Yes.
Get ready. Everything, get ready.
No, we don't.
Right.
I knew what you were saying.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For those who are looking.